Hello and welcome. I'm Saad Dino, pharmacist and co-owner of Acton Pharmacy, West Concord Pharmacy, and Keys Drug in Newton. I would like to welcome everyone back to a special edition of A Healthier You. Today, we'll be discussing the ongoing issue of substance abuse and addiction, as well as the resources and information we have for individuals and families who are suffering right here in our community. Here with me today is Deputy Chief Jim Gogan from the Acton Police Department, Aaliyah Torren-Burrell, who is the Jail Diversion Program Coordinator and clinician from Elliott Community Human Services, and Cheryl Ball, Director of the Acton Health Department. Each of us, including myself, is a member of the Substance Use Disorder Coalition, which was formed by the Acton Health Department in an effort to help combat substance abuse and addiction in our community. As we have all become aware, substance abuse and opioid addiction has reached a crisis point in our community and throughout the country. As stakeholders, we must work together, work with everyone in town of Acton and the surrounding communities, and work toward bettering the odds and outcomes of all those affected by substance abuse and addiction. From public safety to mental health to public health to the provider community, all of us here today are committed to finding solutions. I welcome my guests to the show. I will start with you, Deputy Chief Gogan. How does substance abuse impact the community as a whole, from your perspective in public safety?
Well, thank you very much, Seth, for having us here today. It's
My
a
pleasure.
great opportunity for us to get together and talk about this. We've seen a great increase in the number of calls we've responded to with involving substance abuse, whether it be someone driving under the influence of a substance or dealing with someone in a residence that's suffering from a mental health crisis due to substance abuse. So it certainly impacts us.
Okay. How do you, as a police officer or the police department, come in contact with those that may suffer from substance disorder?
Well, like I said, sometimes it'll be a call for service. We'll be responding to someone's house because they're in crisis. It could be they're involved in a domestic incident. We find out that way that that might be the cause of the problem. It might be a vehicle operation or a vehicle crash that we're responding to because of someone overusing any type of substance.
Okay. And how do you handle an individual who you believe may be suffering from a substance use disorder?
Well, I think the number one thing we want to do is be able to help them.
Sure.
And that may require us doing several things. We may end up arresting the person due to the incident, but at that point we'll also make a referral to Elliott Mental Health,
okay,
or our jail diversion coordinator to follow up with that person to offer them services that may be helpful to them.
And what's the success rate in that regard of assistance?
I'd have
if you have a number.
I don't have a number. I don't have a statistic. I certainly think it helps in the repeat or the people that we deal with on a regular basis.
Okay.
If we're able to refer them to Aaliyah and she can have a follow-up with them and direct them to some services they need, it certainly seems to help or reduce the number of times we respond to deal with that person.
Awesome. In addition to opioid misuse or overuse, what other kind of substance abuse do you see in the community, if I may ask that question?
I think for law enforcement in general, I think that answer would be alcohol.
Okay.
You know, it's something that causes a lot of problems. Again, whether it be a domestic incident that we're dealing with, a family issue. We recently had an issue with someone showing up at a school, a parent that was under the influence of alcohol. It's something that's very prevalent in our community, and we certainly see the number of drunk driving arrests continue to be about the same. So there's certainly a problem with alcohol as well as other substances.
Okay, thank you for that. Has this problem become more prevalent in the past? Let's give it a time period of 5 years, let's say, particularly in regards to the overdose of opioids and deaths of opioids or any other substances.
I think we've certainly seen a rise in the number of responses we've had or calls to deal with someone that's suffering from an overdose of opioids.
Okay. Percentage?
I don't have the numbers. I think we've had certainly an increase in the number of overdoses over the last 5 years. I think that number has risen year to year slowly, yes.
Okay. So it kind of correlates with the crisis that we're having across the nation.
I agree.
All the numbers are up.
Yes.
Okay. So it's not just a countrywide issue, it's a more effective our community locally.
Oh, certainly hits our community as well, yes.
Are there any trends that you notice?
As far as opioid use, or
Yes.
I wouldn't say trends. It seems to be a continuous problem. I don't
Okay.
notice
Whether
any
it's
trends.
opioid or marijuana or any other substances that you think of?
Well, I think we've seen an increase also in the number of dealings with people with marijuana. You know, the strengths of marijuana. I've read that it's much higher than it was previously, and I think we've responded to people that have overdosed or potentially been hospitalized because of use of marijuana, which in the past, in my long history with the police department, I don't remember that happening, but now we're seeing that begin to happen.
So it's the stronger strains of marijuana that our community individuals are purchasing.
Yeah.
That they don't know what they're purchasing, basically.
Right. They're getting a hold of it some way. I don't know how they're getting it at this point, but certainly seems to be stronger and affecting people to a point where they need hospitalization.
That's interesting. As a police department, what resources do you guys rely on when it comes to opioid crisis?
My friends here, Aaliyah and Cheryl from the health department, we work together quite often.
What support does your department provide families or individuals that have substance issues? That, maybe before it gets to Aaliyah or Cheryl or other aspects of our healthcare system.
That's a difficult question.
I'm sure.
Yeah, certainly we're available to try and provide whatever help we can.
Okay.
Whatever that means. We'll reach out to people within the community and try to get whatever assistance we can for them.
So as a pharmacist, obviously I've heard of Narcan, and we have it in our pharmacy to utilize or dispense to individuals and families that need it, or when a physician deems it necessary for an individual. Have your department dealt with Narcan in the past couple of years?
Yes, we have. We've been carrying Narcan for 3 or 4 years. All officers are issued Narcan to carry with them. I carry it with me, and we.
Just for our audience, Deputy Chief, can you just describe what Narcan is real quick in 30 seconds?
I'll try.
Sure.
I'm not a pharmacist.
I understand.
You could probably do it better.
I will help you.
So Narcan is a drug that we can administer,
Yep.
very easily administer through the nostril to stop the effects of an opioid. Somehow, and again, you'd be able to explain this
it has a mechanism of where it reverses it reverses an overdose of opioids specifically, and has been very greatly successful. It's given it through the nose. Does it work all the time? No, but it has worked tremendously and has saved a lot of lives. And hopefully, by reviving those individuals and getting the correct help, those individuals will recover and stop using opioids as a measure of their livelihood. So, numbers-wise of Narcan use in the past 3-4 years?
Yeah, we've certainly seen an increase in that as well. 3 or 4 years ago, I believe there were 2 or 3 deployments of Narcan to people that were suffering. And last year, in 2017, we had 7 times that we used Narcan to help revive a person.
And were you able to revive them each time?
I believe it was 6 people we were able to revive.
Great percentage.
Yes.
Great percentage. As a pharmacist, we always encourage parents and individuals that have opioids that are no longer, being used by the individuals that was prescribed for, to get rid of them. I always send people to the police department because I know you have a drop-off bin. Can you just discuss that a little bit so our audience know? We always encourage people to look through the medicine cabinet, get rid of stuff that they don't need anymore, because we've heard story after story where unfortunately kids, adolescents, were having a party and they'll go through the parents' medicine cabinet to see what's there. Mm-hmm. So Can you just discuss that a little bit? Because I know you guys have done a tremendous job in that aspect.
Yes, I think we've gotten the word out pretty well, including a recent article in the Beacon that was very successful. We actually saw an increase, I think, in the number of people that came in and dropped off their unused medications. So we've had it, I think, for about 5 years in our lobby, a spot where they can come and drop off unused medications. And I want to say we've turned in about 500 to 600 pounds in the last couple of years annually for drop-off. So
again, I was going to repeat that number. That was 500 to 600 pounds of unused medications was sent to the incinerator for destruction.
Yes, and that's obviously just Acton.
That's incredible. That's well done. I mean, that's exactly the message we want to send to our audience, is that get rid of medicine that you're no longer utilizing, specifically opioids of any kind. Destroy, I just tell our customers or individuals that I speak to, just get rid of your name, sharpen with a black pen, and it's anonymous. You just go drop it off, and nobody's going to ask you a question.
Right, it's self-service. You don't deal with anyone. You don't speak to an officer. You come in, and it's like mailing a letter.
Right.
You come in and open up the container. You drop your medications in, and at that point, they're secure. They're contained. We hold them in a secure evidence room until the destruction, and we package them and turn them over to the DEA twice a year.
Okay, and that's Drug Enforcement Agency, obviously. And then no liquids.
No liquids.
No liquids. So,
Yes.
audience, no liquids in
no
that
cough
bin.
syrups and things like that. But
Exactly.
any type of pill.
You'll take back.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And my last question to you, Deputy Chief, is what do you think is needed most to lessen this problem, the opioid crisis?
That's the $1 million question there. If we had the answer, we could fix things, right? I think working together is what we're doing, and hopefully that will lead us to an answer.
Education probably is the number one thing.
That certainly helps.
Yep.
And working together with our partners is, and sharing information that we have to help is probably the best advice I could give.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If I have a further question, I'll get back to you.
All right.
I'm going to go to Aaliyah right now. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking time. Tell us a little about your role and how it came about, please.
Sure. So the Jail Diversion Program is a Department of Mental Health funded grant in collaboration with Elliott Community Human Services, as well as all of the police departments that feed into Concord District Court and Hanscom Air Force Base.
Interesting.
So it's 9 towns in total. And the goal really is to support people dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues who come into contact with law enforcement, with this idea that the more support and resources we can provide people, the less likely they are to come into contact with law enforcement in the future, which is best case scenario for everyone, I think. In practice, what that looks like is anytime there is an incident involving mental health or substance abuse that comes across the police, I get a referral for it, and I'm reaching out to people, I'm reaching out to families to provide support and services. It's a pretty flexible program, so it's really providing whatever somebody is looking for. So whether that's short-term crisis intervention, whether that's a referral to therapy or to substance use treatment, whether it's support for families, it's really flexible to what somebody's looking for.
And what part of your job involves working with people who have substance use disorder?
Yeah, so as I said before, if a substance use issue comes across police, we're following up. So we're reaching out to people and offering services. If somebody at that moment says, you know what, I'm good, I don't want any treatment, I don't want any services, that's totally fine. Nothing that we're providing on my end of things is mandatory. So we say, if you change your mind, we're here to help you out.
Okay. And my question to that is that, explain about the recovery coach.
Yeah.
And her or his role.
Yeah. So even before a recovery coach came on, which I'll explain a little bit more about.
If you don't mind, thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. I think a increased support that we're giving is particularly around overdoses. So while we're reaching out to everybody who has substance use issues in town, if there's an overdose, we're reaching out within 48 hours, going to somebody directly and providing services. So the recovery coach is just one more thing that the town is providing for supporting people dealing with these issues. And a recovery coach is, I think, a pretty unique model of support for people and families. It's in between a clinical and a kind of sponsor, if you're thinking about
Sure.
the traditional AA, NA type sponsor. So it's somewhere in the middle. And it's providing goal-setting support, case management support, connecting somebody to treatment, providing family support in a more ongoing way than the jail diversion program is kind of able to do capacity-wise.
Okay.
So she just started. Her name is Coretta.
Awesome.
And it's a partnership with AmeriCorps and PARI, which is the Police Assisted Addiction and Recovery Initiative. So we've partnered with them. So she started this week. So it's a pretty exciting both model as well as initiative that the town is taking on.
And it has been utilized in other communities?
It has been, yeah.
Okay.
I believe there are 15 recovery coaches through AmeriCorps and PARI that exist throughout the country, I believe.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I think you hit on this a little bit earlier, but can you just provide, what kind of support do you provide families who have loved ones who are abusing substances?
Yeah, for families, again, it's really dependent on what they need. Sometimes they just need somebody to listen to them. Sometimes they're looking for a support group. So Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, we have Learn to Cope, which is a great resource for families in the area, which is a peer model for family support. We have Smart Recovery, which is another family model for support. Sometimes they're looking to connect their loved ones to treatment, so we're giving them direct treatment resources. So it kind of runs the gamut on all levels of care for somebody.
And just what resources do you provide? Do you recommend for families that may be watching the show right now and our audience? What resources can you provide them that they could utilize right away?
So besides those groups that I talked about, which I would encourage any family member to get support through, oftentimes people see their own therapists as a really helpful thing for dealing with a loved one with substance use issues. Depending on the loved one's insurance or what they're able to do, I'm providing resources related to the actual treatment center.
Sure.
So, but something that anybody can do, they can call the Mass Substance Abuse Helpline. I mean, throughout the state, there's hundreds of resources. So it's really about what somebody's looking for and connecting them with the appropriate
But somebody
resource.
like you, who they contact with, can
Yes, and the
actually-
recovery coach.
Exactly.
Yep. We can
kinda
say,
help, assist.
exactly, right? You have Mass Health, this detox takes Mass Health, and they have an open bed. Let's get somebody there.
So you gotta kind of set the map for them for the recovery, hopefully.
Yep.
How would a local treatment center be helpful?
Helpful in providing substance use treatment. That's the main thing.
Okay.
It is, or can be hard, I should say can be hard. Obviously it's an individual journey for each person, but stopping on your own is really hard. And so treatment provides that kind of structure and support around getting into recovery.
And
Has that answered your question?
yes, it did. No, yes, it did. I asked WHU the same question. I'm going to ask you. What do you think is needed most to lessen this problem that exists in our society these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said education. I think that's so important and starting super young. So if we're thinking about prevention, education, and intervention on the scale of substance use, stopping substance use issues, but I mean, schools are already doing a lot and they've got a lot on their plate, but anything that we can do to help support schools and supporting kids, that's, I think, super important. I think supporting parents, giving parents the tools to talk to their kids about substance use, to intervene when they think there's a problem, to have the courage and the tools to be able to do that, I think prevents a lot of parents from intervening. So that's I think an important thing. And of course we have in Massachusetts all these laws coming into place that are limiting opioid prescriptions, that are hopefully increasing the number of treatment beds that are available for people, increasing the number of treatment providers in general. And then on the flip side, there's also laws that are increasing substance use. For instance, with the marijuana laws, which are obviously, we're going to see what's going to happen with that. But so there's lots of things going on, I guess, in the prevention world. But
So I think just for our audience, as a educator, as a coordinator, as a helper, what is substance abuse disorder? We should probably define that for our audience.
sure.
And what does that entail?
Yeah. So substance use disorder is listed in the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which comprises all of the mental health disorders that exist. So if we're really kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Yes, we are. Yes, but it's okay. I think our audience needs it.
Yeah, so substance use disorder can be categorized as mild, moderate, or severe. And I would actually encourage people to look up what this actually looks like, because it can be kind of startling when you look at a mild substance use disorder. I think it's characterized, and don't quote me on this, it's like it's not that much substances that you have to be using to qualify for as a mild substance use disorder, but really on the less clinical side of things,
Sure.
a substance use disorder, somebody has a substance use disorder when they're using substances and it's negatively impacting their life.
Okay.
So a substance use disorder for one person can look totally different than a substance use disorder for somebody else. So we're really looking at effects, not necessarily how much somebody's using or what substance they're using.
Okay.
So if it's negatively impacting, right, if they think about it all the time and can't go without it, if they're physically addicted to it, if they can't hold down a job or go to school without having negative effects around it, if they have withdrawal symptoms related to substance use. So there's a bunch of different categories that
Okay.
would indicate that somebody has a substance use disorder.
And we're talking about alcohol,
We're talking about alcohol,
talking about marijuana,
talking about marijuana,
talking about opioids,
opioids, yeah,
heroin.
yep.
Any of those substances
Any-
is considered a substance disorder.
Right, it doesn't matter if a substance is illegal or not illegal, right? It's again, looking at the impact on somebody's life.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you also if I can think of questions.
All right.
Because you've said a lot of awesome things. Thank you so much for sharing. And now we come down to Cheryl. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
What prompted the Acton Health Department to get involved in the issue of substance use disorder?
Well, as we've all discussed here, we know it's a national epidemic, and so we decided to sit down and try to figure out how this issue was affecting the residents of Acton.
Okay.
So once we did that, we decided to create this coalition that consists of my two, all three of you, as well as Domestic Violence Services Network, the Council on Aging, and then some clergy members. So we decided to create this coalition and then apply for a grant that allowed us to focus on a set population. And we actually, because there's a lot of work being done in the schools, as Aaliyah mentioned, we decided to focus on the 50-plus population with this grant. So so we're right in the middle of that grant right now.
It's interesting you mentioned the over 50 population, because it's sometimes I feel like there's a misconception that this is only this disorder, if I may call it, it only affects adolescents to somebody in the ages of 30s and 40s. But in matter of fact, there's no limit to this disorder,
No.
right? There's no age limit. So I commend you for utilizing the grant to assist those that may need it in that population. Can you tell us a little bit about the grant you received and the activities that are associated with it, please?
So as I mentioned, we've established a coalition. So the coalition meets once a month, and it was a one-year grant. And at the end of the grant, I should mention that we received the grant from CHNA 15, which is Community Health Network Area. The CHNAs were established when the DPH gave the monies to the CHNAs to help promote health and wellness, basically. Okay. And this year's focus is specifically on elders and youth. So we received that grant. We've been meeting monthly, and our goal is to have a strategic plan at the end to see what we as Acton want to do.
Okay. So DPH is Department of Public Health.
Correct.
And the CHNA is what?
Community Health Network Area, and Acton is part of CHNA 15.
Perfect. Thank you so much, just so our audience would know what that is. What are the most prevalent issues around substance abuse in people over 50 and over?
So the Acton Boxborough United Way did a community health assessment, and in that assessment they noted that people were self-medicating as well as alcoholism amongst seniors. And they were primarily driven by mental health issues. So that was one of the reasons we did it. And then the Council on Aging, we've had conversations with them, and they have indicated to us that some of our older residents are taking too much medication. Okay. So they thought that was a problem. They also mentioned that people, as I think we kind of touched on a little bit, is to clean out your cabinets, and get them out of your home and into the drug drop box at the police station, because they also mentioned that drugs are being stolen from seniors' homes.
Interesting. And how is this is a particular question to the health department. How is the health department spreading the word about this endeavor, about this grant?
So the coalition is our big thing. We do have a website, healthyacton.org, and we do have quite a elaborate substance abuse section in that website. We have emails. We welcome others to submit topics to that. And then ideally at the end of this grant, we want to create a resource card that we can pass out to residents so they have all the numbers at their fingertips.
And speaking of resources, what resources do you provide the community when it comes to this issue?
So basically, yeah, I kind of already answered
Yep.
that, but basically the Healthy Acton website and the group that we're working on now. And then in addition to that, to the medication drop box, the town hall has sharp disposal
Thank you for
kiosks.
mentioning that, yep.
So you can bring in your sharps in a container and drop them in the box. Anytime town hall's open, which is typically 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We, in the past 2 years, have had to increase our pickup of that box to twice per month instead of once a month.
Wow,
So it's being widely used.
awesome. And that's right in the,
Right in the town hall lobby. Yep.
thank you. So maybe we have the attention of the community here. So what would you like the community to know about this, or what would you like to know from the community to help you assist you with this grant?
So
Probably a proper question.
we want to know what people's experiences have been. We are just about to release a survey, and we are going to send that out on our listserv, advertise it in the newspapers, on social media to get that survey out there. And we would encourage anybody that has any experience to fill out that survey, or even if you don't, to fill out the survey and submit it back to us.
It's relevant information that you guys, we are going to need as a community to help us assist with this grant. So how does being involved in this grant inform your work as health department director?
My mission is to make Acton a healthier community, bottom line, and this is something at the forefront, which is why we decided to address this at this time.
Awesome. Can you explain about China and how it provides resources to the communities it serves?
So China is a partnership with the Department of Public Health. So anytime a hospital does any kind of renovations, they're required to put funds into a DON, determination of need, I think it is. And then that pool of money is distributed to the Chinas, and those Chinas take that pool of money. And right now our China is very flush with money. Leahy has been doing a lot of renovations, and they pretty much give us the money, and then we let people apply for grants to address their needs. And that's where I got this grant, as I mentioned before.
Awesome.
So, and the Chinas are 10, 12 towns, pretty much every town surrounding Acton, all the way out through Burlington.
So you work with other towns when it comes to this?
Correct.
So if people wanted to know more or get involved in this coalition, where can they go, what should they do?
Well, I'd welcome them to reach out to me, or we do have coalition meetings, and they're at 10 o'clock at Town Hall. So we'd love to have you join us, or just get in touch with me, and I can make sure your concerns are noted to our group.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being here, guys. I truly appreciate it. It was a great discussion, and I'm sure our audience is going to find it very, very resourceful. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again to our three guests for joining me and for taking the time to speak with us about the challenging issues of substance abuse and addiction. Thank you all for tuning in to A Healthier You. I'm Saad Dino, co-owner of Acton Pharmacy, West Concord Pharmacy and Keys Drug, and I look forward to seeing you around town. Be well.